The blueprints for Alex's future were meticulous, detailed down to the millimeter, much like the architectural designs that had earned him recognition in his firm. 3 days from now, he would marry Sarah, his college sweetheart, culminating 7 years of a relationship that had progressed with the comfortable predictability of a well-plotted graph. Their wedding venue was booked, honeymoon tickets purchased, and a suburban home waiting for them to begin their life together. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Alex adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the seating chart for the reception one more time. He had always prided himself on his rational mind and systematic approach to life. The supernatural, the unexplained, the aberrations from established patterns. These were things he dismissed with a scientist's skepticism. There was always a logical explanation, he believed, for what others might attribute to the mysterious or the divine. Just need to finalize these last few tables, he muttered to himself. Alone in the apartment he'd soon be leaving behind. Sarah was spending these final pre-wedding days with her parents, following tradition more than superstition. He appreciated the quiet, using it to ensure every detail was in its proper place. The first sign that his carefully ordered world was about to fracture came subtly. The lights flickered, once, twice, a minor power fluctuation, he reasoned. Then the coffee mug on his desk began to vibrate, inching across the surface with a soft scraping sound. The entire room seemed to hold its breath as a faint humming filled the air, building in intensity until Alex's ears popped from a sudden change in pressure. He stood, alarmed, as a shimmer of light manifested in the center of his living room. It expanded, spinning like a miniature galaxy, casting prismatic colors across the walls. Alex backed away, his shoulder blades pressing against the cool wall behind him, mouth dry, heartbeat accelerating. The light collapsed inward with a soft implosion, and where emptiness had been a moment before, 2 women now stood. They were identical in height and build, with the same striking features that seemed both familiar and utterly alien. High cheekbones, luminous skin with a faint, otherworldly iridescence, and eyes of such depth and unusual color that Alex couldn't decide if they were violet or silver. Their resemblance marked them as sisters, but their expressions and bearing set them distinctly apart. Both wore form-fitting garments made of a material that seemed to ripple and adjust with their movements, like liquid metal woven into fabric. "Hello, Alexander James Mercer," said the one on the left, her voice melodic but crisp, carrying the precision of a mathematician reciting an elegant proof. "We've come a very long way to meet you," added the right one, her identical voice somehow warmer, tinged with playfulness and something Alex's brain registered, with alarm, as seduction. Alex's first coherent thought was that he was hallucinating. His second was that he was the victim of an elaborate prank, perhaps orchestrated by his groomsmen. Neither explanation satisfied the evidence of his senses. "Who are you?" he managed, his voice embarrassingly thin. "How did you get into my apartment?" The first woman tilted her head slightly. "I am Lyra." "And I am Vesper," said the second, with a smile that seemed to hold secrets. "We are from what you would call the Andromeda Galaxy," Lyra continued, as calmly as if announcing she was from Canada. "Though such spatial designations are crude approximations at best." Alex's mind reeled. He should be afraid. He was afraid. But beneath the fear bubbled an unwelcome fascination. "That's impossible. You're saying you're aliens?" We understand your skepticism," Vesper cut in, taking a step toward him. "But is it truly so difficult to accept that in an infinite universe, other intelligent life exists? That some of that life might develop technologies beyond your current understanding?" Lyra remained where she was, her posture perfect, observant. "We have been monitoring your species for some time. You, specifically, for reasons that will become clear." Alex's gaze darted between them, searching for signs of deception, for evidence of special effects or technological trickery. He found none. "Why me? What do you want?" The sisters exchanged a glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. "We require what our people call a shared bond," Lyra explained. "A connection that begins at what your culture would term a wedding night." "A rather poetic coincidence," Vesper added, her smile widening. Given your imminent nuptials. Alex stared at them, certain he had misunderstood. You can't mean. We do, said Lyra. And we both desire this bond with you. Both of you. Alex repeated dumbly. Yes. They answered in unison, their voices harmonizing in a way that sent a shiver down his spine. This is insane, Alex whispered, more to himself than to them. I'm getting married in 3 days. To a woman I love. A human woman. We are aware, said Lyra, without a trace of concern. And we are offering you something far beyond what any human union could provide. Something transcendent, Vesper added, her eyes gleaming. Something extraordinary. Alex sank back into his chair, feeling as though the floor beneath him had suddenly vanished. His world, so solid and predictable just minutes ago, now seemed as insubstantial as the light that had preceded their arrival. The sisters settled themselves in his living room as though they intended to stay. Lyra perched with perfect posture on the edge of a sofa, while Vesper explored the space with undisguised curiosity, picking up framed photographs and examining his belongings. Perhaps we should explain further, Lyra suggested, noting Alex's overwhelmed expression. The bond we seek is not merely physical, though that element exists. It is a profound merging of consciousness, spirit, and essence that bestows knowledge, strength, and experiences beyond human comprehension. In our culture, Vesper continued, setting down a photo of Alex and Sarah at graduation, it is considered the highest form of connection, sacred and transformative. And rare, Lyra added, particularly that two sisters would both seek this bond with the same individual. It's practically unprecedented, Vesper said with a laugh that reminded Alex of wind chimes. You should feel honored. Honored. Alex found his voice again, indignation cutting through shock. You barge into my home, days before my wedding, and expect me to what? Abandon the woman I love for some cosmic threesome? Lyra's expression didn't change, but a subtle tightening around her eyes suggested his crude description offended her. You misunderstand the nature of what we offer. The bond transcends your species' limited concepts of physical intimacy or romantic attachment. Though those elements are not excluded, Vesper clarified with a sly smile. Why me? Alex demanded again. Out of billions of humans, why come to me now? You possess certain genetic markers, Lyra explained. Neural patterns and energetic resonances that make you exceptionally compatible with our species. In simpler terms, Vesper added, approaching to sit on the arm of his chair, close enough that he could detect a faint, otherworldly scent like ozone and exotic flowers. You're special, Alex. Rare. One in several billion. Alex stood abruptly, needing distance from her proximity. So, I'm just some biological compatibility match? A specimen. Not at all, Lyra corrected. The compatibility is necessary, but not sufficient. There is an element of, I believe you would call it chemistry, a mutual resonance that cannot be predicted by science alone. And we both feel it with you, Vesper said softly, strongly. The implication hung in the air between them. Alex ran a hand through his hair, trying to ground himself in reality, a reality that had expanded dramatically in the past half hour. This is crazy, he said. Even if I believed you, which I'm not saying I do, I love Sarah. We have a life plan together. I can't just throw that away for some alien. Ritual. Love. Lyra repeated the word, as if examining an interesting but flawed theorem. Your human conception of love is beautiful in its way, but ultimately limited by your mortality and understanding. What you call love, Vesper added, her voice gentle but insistent, is largely biochemical, an evolutionary adaptation to ensure pair bonding for reproduction and child-rearing. What we offer transcends such biological imperatives. That's reductive, Alex argued, feeling defensive. Love is more than just chemicals. Is it? Lyra questioned. Or is that what you need to believe to give meaning to your experiences? Alex felt his certainties wavering. He thought of Sarah, her laugh, her kindness, the way she knew exactly when he needed space or closeness. That was real, wasn't it? The choice remains yours, Vesper assured him, moving back to give him space. We do not force bonds. They must be entered willingly, or they cannot form. But understand, Lyra added, a new intensity in her voice, that rejection has consequences as well. Not as punishment, but as natural outcome. What consequences? Alex asked, suddenly wary. Once offered, awareness cannot be unlearned, Lyra said. Your perception has already begun to shift. You will see the world differently now, knowing what exists beyond it, and knowing what you might have experienced, Vesper added softly. Alex felt a chill. They were right about one thing. He could never unsee them, never unknow this moment. Already he felt his worldview cracking, admitting possibilities he had dismissed his entire life. I need time, he said finally, to think. The sisters exchange another look. Time is one. Luxury we have little of, Lyra informed him. The alignment that allows us to remain here is brief. A decision must be made before your wedding day, before the bond you would form with your Sarah becomes complicated to undo, Vesper explained. Alex looked between them. These impossible visitors who had shattered his reality and now demanded he reconstruct it around them. I need to sleep, he said finally. This is too much. Surprisingly, they nodded in agreement. Rest, Lyra said. We will return tomorrow. Consider our offer carefully, Alexander. Dream of possibilities, Vesper suggested with a final smile before they both seemed to shimmer and fade, leaving Alex alone in his apartment with nothing but the lingering scent of ozone to suggest they had ever been there at all. He slept fitfully that night, his dreams filled with stars and vast, unknown spaces. When Alex awoke the next morning, his first coherent thought was that he had experienced an unusually vivid dream, a manifestation, perhaps, of pre-wedding anxiety. But the faint ozone scent lingering in his living room and the slightly rearranged photographs on his bookshelf told a different story. They were real, which meant everything they had told him might be real as well. He went through the motions of his day at the architectural firm, his mind light years away from the client meeting he was supposedly participating in. Colleagues attributed his distraction to wedding jitters. His boss clapped him on the shoulder and told him to take the afternoon off. Last thing we need is you designing a skyscraper with the bathroom sinks installed in the ceiling, he joked. Go home. Clear your head. Alex did go home, but clarity remained elusive. He found himself researching astronomical phenomena, theoretical physics, multiverse theories, searching for scientific frameworks that might explain his visitors. The more he read, the more he realized that modern physics already acknowledged possibilities that seemed as fantastical as anything Lyra and Vesper had suggested. Quantum entanglement, higher dimensions, the malleability of space-time. What if they were telling the truth? His phone rang. Sarah's photo appeared on the screen, her smile bright and uncomplicated. Hey, wedding planner just called about the flowers, she said when he answered. There's an issue with the white roses. Oh. Alex managed, his mind struggling to engage with something so mundane after contemplating interstellar visitors. She said they can substitute peonies, which might actually be better since my mom is slightly allergic to roses. What do you think? Alex tried to focus. Whatever you think is best. A pause. Are you okay? You sound distracted. Just work stress. He lied. The first of what he feared would be many deceptions. Big project deadline coming up. After next week, we'll be on a beach with no deadlines and no cell reception, Sarah reminded him, her voice warm with anticipation. Just you and me and 2 weeks of newlywed bliss. Guilt twisted in Alex's stomach. Can't wait, he said, meaning it even as part of him wondered what other experiences the universe might hold. They talked a few minutes more before hanging up. Alex stared at her photo on his phone screen. 7 years together. A foundation of friendship, respect, and love. Real, human love, biochemical or not. He was still staring when the air in his apartment began to vibrate with now familiar energy. This time, Lyra and Vesper appeared with less dramatic flair, simply materializing several feet apart in his living room. They had changed their attire, still otherworldly in material and cut, but more subdued, almost as if they were attempting to blend in despite their ethereal beauty. You've been researching, Lyra observed immediately, nodding toward his laptop screen, which displayed an article on wormhole theory. Trying to make sense of this, Alex admitted. If you're really what you say you are, would evidence help? Vesper asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. Before Alex could answer, she extended her hand, palm up. Above it, a small sphere of light formed, condensing until it became a miniature model of what he recognized as a solar system, but not ours. Multiple suns of different colors orbited one another, with planets tracing complex, interlocking paths around them. Our home system, she explained as Alex stared, transfixed, or a simplified representation of it. How are you doing that? He whispered. Energy manipulation, Lyra said matter-of-factly. A basic skill for our species. Vesper closed her hand, and the miniature solar system vanished. We could show you more, she offered, but perhaps a different approach might be more convincing. Before Alex could question her meaning, she stepped forward and lightly touched his forehead. Immediately, his mind filled with an image, not seen with his eyes, but experienced directly in his consciousness, of a city, unlike any on Earth. Spires of crystal and light twisted upward, connected by bridges that seemed to defy gravity. Beings moved through spaces that folded and unfolded according to needs rather than fixed architecture. The vision lasted only seconds before Vesper withdrew her hand, but it left Alex gasping. That was a glimpse of our world, she confirmed. Or rather, my memory of it shared directly with you. A taste of the kind of communication the bond would permit, though much deeper and more sustained. Alex sank into a chair, overwhelmed. This is real, he said, the full weight of realization settling on him. You're really aliens. We prefer interstellar beings, Vesper said with a smile, but yes. And you really want this bond with me? Yes, Lyra confirmed, though perhaps for slightly different reasons. Alex looked up, noting a new tension between the sisters. Different reasons? Lyra straightened, her posture becoming even more formal, if that were possible. While the bond is the same in nature, our approaches differ. I value the intellectual and spiritual expansion the bond would provide, the sharing of knowledge and perception across species boundaries. While Vesper interjected, moving to perch on the arm of Alex's chair again, am more interested in the experiential aspects. The emotional resonance, the sensory exchange, the pleasure. Alex felt heat rise to his face at her emphasis on the final word. The outcome would be the same, Lyra continued, with a quick, disapproving glance at her sister. A permanent connection that would transform you as much as it would enrich us. Transform me how exactly? Alex asked, suddenly wary. You would remain physically human, Lyra assured him, but with expanded consciousness, enhanced perception, access to knowledge beyond human science, and a connection to us, Vesper added, regardless of physical distance. Alex tried to process the implications. And this bond, it's formed during intimacy. The process begins with physical union, Lyra confirmed, clinical in her description, but transcends it. The quantum entanglement of consciousness requires certain conditions that in humanoid species align most perfectly with what you would call sexual intimacy. Though much more profound, Vesper added, her eyes holding his. Imagine the most intense connection you've ever experienced, multiplied exponentially. Every sensation, every emotion, every thought shared and amplified between bonded partners. Partners, Alex repeated. Both of you. Yes, they confirmed in unison. And this doesn't happen where you're from. Multiple partners. It's exceptionally rare, Lyra explained. The resonance required is difficult enough to find with one individual, let alone two, particularly between genetic relatives. Which makes you uniquely valuable to us, Vesper said, and the experience uniquely powerful for you. Alex stood suddenly, needing to move, to think. And what happens after? Do I go to your world? Do you stay here? How would this even work with my life, my job, my... He stopped, unable to say Sarah's name. The bond would allow you to perceive, and partially exist in multiple planes simultaneously, Lyra explained. You could maintain a human life if you chose, though you would likely find it increasingly limiting. Eventually, you might wish to journey with us, Vesper suggested. But that decision need not be made immediately. So I could still marry Sarah? Alex asked, then immediately regretted the question when he saw the sisters exchange a look. Technically, yes, Lyra conceded. But the bond would change you in ways that would make conventional human relationships challenging. Not impossible, Vesper clarified quickly, but different. You would see and know things she could not share, and there would be a connection to us that might interfere, Lyra added. Alex shook his head. This is crazy. You're asking me to choose between the woman I've loved for 7 years and, what? A cosmic adventure with 2 aliens I just met. We're asking you to choose between the life you've planned, Vesper said softly, and the life you've never dared to imagine. The words struck home with uncomfortable precision. Hadn't there been moments, even before their arrival, when Alex had looked at his carefully plotted future and felt a whisper of doubt, a wondering if the safe path was also, somehow, a smaller one? I need to see Sarah, he said suddenly. I need to talk to her. Alarm flashed across both sisters' faces. That would be unwise, Lyra said quickly. Human minds are not equipped to process our existence without preparation. The shock could be harmful. Besides, Vesper added, more gently, what would you tell her? That 2 alien sisters have invited you to a transcendent threesome? How do you imagine that conversation would go? Put that way, it did sound absurd. Alex ran his hands through his hair in frustration. Then I need time alone. To think. The sisters exchanged another look, then nodded in agreement. We will return tomorrow, Lyra said. But remember, time grows short. Your wedding and the bond it would create approaches. With that, they vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts and the memory of a crystal city that couldn't possibly exist. Sarah called that evening, concerned when Alex didn't answer her earlier texts. He forced himself to sound normal, to discuss wedding details and their honeymoon plans as if his entire worldview hadn't been shattered, as if the universe hadn't suddenly expanded to include interstellar visitors who wanted to bond with his consciousness. You still sound off, Sarah said finally. Are you having second thoughts? What? No, Alex exclaimed too quickly. No second thoughts. Just work stress. Maybe we should meet for lunch tomorrow, she suggested. Take a break from all the wedding madness. Just you and me like old times. That sounds great, Alex agreed, desperate for the normalcy of her presence, even as he wondered how he would look her in the eye knowing what he now knew. After hanging up, he found himself staring at their engagement photo on his nightstand. Sarah's smile, so genuine and warm. The life they had planned together, step by carefully considered step. A good life. A human life. But now there was an alternative, vast, unknown, frightening in its immensity, but also undeniably thrilling. The glimpse Vesper had shared of their world haunted him. The possibilities Lyra described tantalized his intellect. They offered knowledge, experiences, perceptions beyond human limitation. That night, Alex dreamed he was floating among stars, his body somehow dispersed across light years of space, yet still connected to a core consciousness. In the dream, he wasn't afraid of this dissolution of self. He embraced it, expanded into it, became something more than human. He woke gasping, his sheets damp with sweat, the memory of expansion still thrumming through his nerves. Lunch with Sarah was an exercise in compartmentalization. She looked beautiful in the sunlight filtering through the cafe windows, her dark hair gleaming, her smile as familiar and comforting as ever. She talked about last-minute wedding preparations, about her mother's unnecessary fretting, about the honeymoon resort's excellent reviews. Alex nodded, smiled, responded in all the right places, all while feeling as though he were observing the scene from a distance, as though the Alex sitting across from Sarah was a character he was playing rather than himself. You'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? Sarah asked suddenly, reaching across the table to take his hand. If you were having doubts or concerns? We've always been honest with each other. The question pierced through his abstraction. Alex looked into her trusting eyes and felt the full weight of the deception he was already practicing. He imagined telling her the truth about Lyra and Vesper, about their offer, about the glimpse of their world that had left him questioning everything he thought he knew. The words rose to his lips, hovered there, and died. She would think he'd had a psychotic break. Or worse, she would somehow believe him, and the knowledge would forever change her as it had already changed him. "Nothing's wrong," he lied, squeezing her hand. "I love you. I can't wait to marry you." Both statements were true, he realized, even as they felt insufficient compared to the cosmic questions now circling in his mind. After lunch, he walked Sarah to her car, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive away, a sense of finality in the parting that he couldn't quite explain. Back in his apartment, Alex wasn't surprised when the air began to shimmer with now familiar energy. This time, however, only Lyra appeared, her expression more severe than usual. "Where's Vesper?" Alex asked, surprised at the pang of disappointment he felt. "She will join us shortly," Lyra replied. "I wish to speak with you alone first." Alex gestured for her to sit, a bizarre courtesy given the circumstances. "About what?" Lyra remained standing, her posture rigid. "About the true nature of the choice before you. I thought you had already explained that." "Not entirely." Lyra's gaze was penetrating. "Vesper emphasizes the experiential aspects of the bond, which are indeed profound. But there are responsibilities as well. Consequences that extend beyond your personal transformation." Alex frowned. "What kind of consequences?" "The bond you would form with us would create a bridge between our civilizations, a connection that others might eventually follow. You would be, in essence, an ambassador for humanity." "That's a lot of pressure," Alex said, understating the enormity of such a role. "Indeed, and it comes with risks. Not all of our kind view humanity with benevolence. Some see your species as primitive, potentially dangerous. The bond could provide evidence for or against that perspective. So I'm some kind of test case. If this bond works well, humans get a passing grade." In simplified terms, yes, Lyra acknowledged, though Vesper would not describe it so clinically. Alex absorbed this new dimension of responsibility. "And if I refuse? If I marry Sarah and live a normal human life? Then that opportunity is lost, perhaps for generations. And those among our kind who view humanity with suspicion gain a stronger position." "That sounds like a threat," Alex observed. "Not from me," Lyra clarified. "I merely present reality as it exists. The choice remains yours." The air shimmered again, and Vesper appeared, her expression darkening when she saw Lyra already present. "I see my sister has been speaking with you," she said, a note of irritation in her voice. No doubt, presenting the most austere interpretation of events. "I was explaining the broader implications," Lyra responded coolly. "While conveniently omitting the personal ones," Vesper countered, moving to Alex's side. "Did she mention that the bond brings joy as well as responsibility? That it is not merely duty, but fulfillment?" The tension between them was palpable. Alex realized he was witnessing a disagreement that likely had deeper roots than he understood. "You two don't always get along, do you?" he observed. Vesper laughed. "We are sisters. We love each other deeply and irritate each other thoroughly." "We have different approaches," Lyra conceded, "but our goal in this matter is aligned." "And what exactly is that goal?" Alex asked, suddenly feeling like a pawn in a game he didn't fully comprehend. The sisters exchanged a look that contained volumes of unspoken communication. "Connection," Vesper said finally. "Understanding between worlds. Advancement of knowledge," Lyra added. "Expansion of consciousness." "And why both of you?" Alex pressed. "Why not just one?" Another way to look past between them. "The resonance we both feel with you is unprecedented," Lyra explained. "To ignore it would be wasteful and potentially dangerous," Vesper added. "Unstable. The energy must find equilibrium." Alex wasn't sure he understood, but he sensed there was more to their explanation than they were sharing. A deeper motive, perhaps, or concern. "Tomorrow is your wedding eve," Lyra reminded him. The decision point approaches. By midnight tomorrow, you must choose, Vesper confirmed. Us, or your human bride. And if I choose you? Alex asked. What happens then? We complete the bond, Lyra said. And then a new journey begins, Vesper added, a smile playing at her lips. They left him shortly after, promising to return the following evening for his answer. Alex spent the night restless, his mind torn between two futures, one safe and known, one vast and mysterious. The next day, his wedding eve, passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. He went through the motions, smiling at relatives who had arrived early, assuring his best man that he had the rings, rehearsing his vows with mechanical precision, all while a countdown ticked in his mind, hours slipping away until the moment of decision. The rehearsal dinner that evening was an exercise in divided attention. Sarah glowed with happiness, surrounded by friends and family, occasionally meeting his eyes across the room with a smile that twisted his heart. She had no idea that while she celebrated their imminent union, he contemplated an entirely different joining. When he returned to his apartment that night, he knew they would be waiting. Sure enough, Lyra and Vesper stood in his living room, their otherworldly beauty somehow enhanced by the anticipation of the moment. You've made your decision, Lyra observed, studying his face. Alex nodded slowly. I have. He looked between them. Lyra with her precise intelligence and hint of vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. Vesper with her sensual warmth masking a depth he'd only begun to glimpse. Then he thought of Sarah, of her human love and the life they'd planned. I choose. He began, his voice catching. Consider carefully, Vesper urged. This choice, once made, alters your path irrevocably. Alex took a deep breath. I choose to accept your offer, to form this bond, to step into the unknown. The sisters' expressions transformed, Lyra's features softening with what might have been relief, Vesper's lighting with triumph and anticipation. You understand what this means? Lyra said, not quite a question. That I can't marry Sarah tomorrow, Alex confirmed, pain lancing through him even as certainty settled in his chest. That I'll have to hurt someone I love. That I'll be leaving behind the life I thought I wanted, and embracing one you never imagined possible. Vesper reminded him, stepping closer. How does this work? Alex asked, his heart racing. The bond. It begins with touch, Lyra explained, also moving toward him, with physical connection that opens the pathway for deeper merging. It begins with pleasure, Vesper added, her fingertips brushing his cheek, sending an electric current through his skin. What followed was unlike anything Alex could have prepared for. Their touch, first gentle, then insistent, seemed to dissolve the boundaries of his being. Where skin met skin, energy flowed between them, creating circuits of sensation that transcended the merely physical. And then the merging began in earnest, consciousness flowing into consciousness, memories and knowledge transferring in waves that left him gasping. He saw their world through their eyes, experienced their journey across vast distances, felt the weight of their civilization's history and the lightness of their individual hopes. They, in turn, absorbed his humanity, his loves and fears, his limited but precious perspectives, the unique resonance of his mind that had drawn them across galaxies. The process was not only intimate but transformative. Alex felt his awareness expanding, stretching beyond the confines of his human perception. New colors emerged in his vision, new frequencies in his hearing, thoughts that were not his own, yet now, somehow, were whispered insights no human had ever conceived. When it was complete, Alex lay between them, physically exhausted but mentally more alive than he had ever been. The room around him seemed sharper, more vibrant, layers of reality previously invisible now apparent to his enhanced perception. This is just the beginning, Vesper murmured, her mind still partially entwined with his. The bond will continue to develop, to strengthen. You must address your human obligations, Lyra reminded him, her thoughts colored with unexpected compassion. Before we depart, Alex nodded, feeling the weight of what he must do. He would have to tell Sarah, to break her heart in ways she could never fully understand. He couldn't give her the real reason, couldn't explain that he now existed partially in dimensions she couldn't perceive, that his consciousness was now linked to beings from another world. But that painful conversation was still hours away. For now, he lay in the afterglow of transformation, his mind expanding outward into possibilities he had never imagined. Later, as dawn approached, Alex stood at the viewport of the sisters' craft, a vessel that defied human engineering and physics. Below him, Earth receded, a blue marble against the vastness of space. The heartache of his parting with Sarah was still fresh, her tears, her confusion, her anger all wounds he would carry. He had given her no explanation she could truly comprehend, only apologies that felt hollow compared to the magnitude of his betrayal. Yet alongside that pain was a sense of expansion, of wonder so profound it bordered on terror. The bond pulsed within him, connecting him to Lyra and Vesper across boundaries of flesh and space. Through their link, he could feel the vastness of the cosmos in ways his merely human mind could never have grasped. Having regrets? Vesper asked, joining him at the viewport, her mind brushing against his with warmth and concern. Yes, Alex admitted. And no, I hurt someone I love. I'll always regret that. Yet you don't wish to undo your choice, Lyra observed from behind them, her mental touch more reserved but equally present. No, Alex agreed, watching his home planet grow smaller. I don't. The stars stretched before them, an infinity of worlds and possibilities. And somewhere in that vastness lay answers to questions he was only beginning to formulate, about the true purpose of his bond with these sisters, about the role he would play in the meeting of civilizations, about what it meant to be human when humanity was no longer his only inheritance. Where are we going? He asked, though the question seemed inadequate for the journey they had begun. Everywhere, Vesper answered, her mind shimmering with anticipation. Eventually, Lyra amended, practical as always. Alex smiled, feeling the dual pull of their personalities, so different, yet now inextricably part of his own consciousness. The bond hummed between them, a living connection that transcended anything he had known in his human life. Whatever lay ahead, whatever sacrifices and discoveries awaited, he had chosen this path, had chosen to step beyond the boundaries of the world he knew into something greater and stranger and infinitely more vast. As Earth vanished from view, lost among countless stars, Alex felt not an ending but a beginning. The first step into a universe of possibility, with two otherworldly companions to guide him through the unknown. Vesper's consciousness brushed against his, warm and inviting like sunlight on water. The journey to our home system will take what you would consider several weeks, she explained, though your perception of time will begin to shift as the bond deepens. We'll use this period for your adaptation, Lyra added, her mental touch precise and structured. Your mind must acclimate gradually to its expanded capabilities. Alex nodded, experiencing the strange sensation of understanding concepts that would have been incomprehensible to him just days ago. Through the bond, he could sense layers of meaning behind their words, implications and nuances that transcended verbal communication. I can feel everything, he murmured, overwhelmed by the sensory input flooding his consciousness. Stars weren't just points of light, but complex systems of energy and matter that he could somehow perceive in their multidimensional reality. The ship itself seemed alive with information, responding to the sisters' thoughts in ways both subtle and profound. Your neural pathways are restructuring, Lyra observed, monitoring his adaptation with clinical interest. Remarkable efficiency for a human. He's exceptional, Vesper countered, a hint of possessiveness coloring her thought patterns. As we knew he would be, Alex sensed tension rippling between them, an ancient, complex dynamic that the bond allowed him to feel but not fully comprehend. There was history here, competition perhaps, and something deeper that neither sister chose to bring to the surface of their shared consciousness. There's something you're not telling me, he said, turning from the viewport to face them. about why you both sought this bond with me specifically, about what it means for your people. The sisters exchanged a glance that contained volumes of unspoken communication, even beyond their telepathic abilities. Perceptive, Lyra acknowledged. The bond is already enhancing your intuition. We told you that your genetic structure was compatible, Vesper said, moving closer to him. That was truth, but incomplete. There is a prophecy, Lyra continued reluctantly, her thoughts tightly controlled. Ancient among our kind. It speaks of a distant species emerging into consciousness, with whom a pivotal bond would form, a bridge between civilizations that would alter the course of both. For generations, we believe this referred to a theoretical species we had yet to encounter, Vesper added, until our long-range observers discovered Earth and began studying human genetics. And found me, Alex finished, understanding dawning. But why both of you? Why not just one bond? Again, that weighted silence between the sisters. The prophecy speaks of duality, Lyra finally explained, of balance between opposing forces. Vesper and I represent different philosophical traditions within our civilization, different approaches to knowledge, to experience, to purpose. Some might call us different factions, Vesper clarified, with a wry mental note that suggested this was a significant understatement. And I'm what? A tiebreaker? Alex asked, unsettled by the implications. A unifier, Lyra corrected. At least, according to the prophecy's interpreters. Or a catalyst, Vesper suggested, her thoughts tinged with both excitement and apprehension. For change whose nature even we cannot fully predict. Alex absorbed this revelation, feeling its weight settle alongside the already monumental changes in his existence. Not just an ambassador then, but a figure of almost mythological significance to these beings, a role he neither sought nor prepared for. And if the prophecy is wrong, he asked quietly, if I'm just a human who happened to have compatible brain chemistry, then we have still formed a profound bond that enriches all three of us, Vesper assured him, her consciousness enveloping his with warmth. The personal truth remains, regardless of any larger significance. And human Andromedan relations begin with understanding rather than conflict, Lyra added pragmatically. A valuable outcome irrespective of prophecies. Alex wasn't entirely reassured, but he sensed their sincerity through the bond, this new connection that made deception nearly impossible between them. Whatever their initial motivations, whatever cosmic drama he had unwittingly stepped into, their commitment to the bond itself was genuine. He turned back to the viewport, watching as the ship's advanced propulsion system bent space around them. Stars streaking past in patterns that his newly enhanced perception could begin to track and understand. Earth was already indistinguishable among countless points of light. The life he'd left behind reduced to memory and regret. I left without saying goodbye to my parents, he realized suddenly, a pang of guilt cutting through his cosmic awareness. They'll never know what happened to me. Compassion flowed from both sisters, though expressed differently. Vesper's emotional and immediate, Lyra's more measured but no less sincere. The bond allows for possibilities you haven't yet imagined, Lyra told him, including ways to communicate across distances once thought insurmountable. You mean I could contact them? Hope flickered through Alex's consciousness. Eventually, Vesper confirmed, though not in ways they might immediately comprehend. The bond transforms communication as it transforms perception. Alex nodded, storing this promise for future exploration. For now, there was too much to process, too many new sensations and awarenesses clamoring for his attention. As if sensing his overwhelm, the sisters drew back slightly, allowing him psychological space while maintaining the underlying connection of the bond. Rest, Lyra suggested. Allow your consciousness to integrate these changes naturally. Your human aspects require time to harmonize with the expanded awareness, Vesper agreed. We'll guide you through the process. Alex felt his eyelids growing heavy, though whether from physical exhaustion or some subtle influence from his companions, he couldn't tell. He allowed himself to be led to a chamber within the ship, a space that somehow adjusted its properties to accommodate his hybrid state of being, neither fully human nor whatever he was becoming. As he drifted toward sleep, he felt the sister's consciousness like twin moons orbiting his awareness, distinct but connected, pulling his consciousness in different directions while somehow maintaining his core stability. Their thoughts whispered at the edges of his mind. Lyra's structured and methodical, planning for contingencies across probable futures. Vesper's flowing and intuitive, already imagining the experiences they would share across the cosmos. And deeper still, beneath their individual patterns, Alex sensed something else. A purpose not fully revealed, a destiny perhaps, that had brought the three of them together across impossible distances. Whatever awaited him among the stars, he knew with absolute certainty that his old life's careful blueprints had been replaced by an uncharted journey into mystery. His last coherent thought before consciousness dissolved into dream was that despite everything he'd left behind, despite Sarah's tears and his parents' inevitable grief, he could not bring himself to regret his choice. The human life he'd planned had been drawn with precision on limited paper. This new existence was being written across the stars themselves, in a language he was only beginning to learn. He slept, and in his dreams, galaxies bloomed like flowers.